The movie begins with 8-year-old Jenny having a tea party with her peculiar-looking dolls. A canary visits her, and as if Jenny had been waiting for it, she climbs onto dangerously placed boxes to reach the window, high near the ceiling, so that she can let it in. But when she reaches the window, the canary is gone, and suddenly it appears out of nowhere and smashes hard on the window, startling Jenny, and as a result, she loses her balance and falls. Meanwhile, Jenny's dad, Jeff, a struggling comic book artist, is busy showing his sketches to Jenny's babysitter, Samantha. Jeff has been without work for almost 3 years after his hit comic series, The Grizzly Kin, is long past its glory days. He is also going through a rough patch with his wife, Maggie, who is in a well-paid job but hardly has time for her family. Maggie has just returned home when she hears a thud from the attic and finds Jenny hurt. She immediately brings her down and, while administering the first aid, confronts Jeff and Samantha for being careless. Jeff and Maggie get into a heated argument, and that is not new to Jenny, and Maggie decides to stay at her father's place and takes Jenny with her. She soon files for divorce and fights for full custody of her daughter on the grounds that Jeff is incapable of providing for Jenny. Jeff tries to negotiate with Maggie and asks her to meet at a cafe to discuss the custody arrangements, but due to a mix-up, Jeff ends up waiting in the wrong cafe. When Maggie calls him, asking him where he is, she isn't surprised that he got the address mixed up, and exasperated by his reckless attitude, she tells him that she is moving to Seattle and taking Jenny with her. Jeff pleads with her not to go, as he will never be able to see his daughter, and just as he's speaking, he hears a crash. Maggie, who throughout the call has been stopping in the middle of roads several times, has been run over by a car, and she dies on the spot. Maggie's demise has a deep impact on Jenny, leading her to regress to her baby talking phase. Jeff gets a glimpse of it at the funeral, which upsets him, and he ends up shouting at her to stop talking like that. During his speech, the candles set before their family portrait that Jeff had painted suddenly start flickering. When one of the candles falls and lights the painting on fire, Jeff finds himself unable to look away from it until quick-witted Samantha rushes in to blow it out using a fire extinguisher. Jeff struggles to make breakfast the day after the funeral, and after almost burning down his kitchen, he ends up ordering food. Jenny still hasn't said a word and keeps to herself, making Jeff feel lost in approaching the situation. Their awkward silence is interrupted by a knock on the door, and it is Paul, Maggie's father. He hands Jeff a notice of the petition for Jenny's full custody and takes the plea that Maggie wanted Jenny to stay away from Jeff. Jeff doesn't want to lose his daughter, so he calls dutiful Samantha to look after Jenny while he goes out to meet an old friend, Connor, who owns a comic production house, to ask for a job. His friend hires him to ink the sketches, and even though Jeff is not very enthusiastic about it, he takes it so he can provide for Jenny. Later that evening, while Jeff is working on the sketches, he sees something outside his window, but when he goes to check, there is nothing. Once back at his table, he goes into a trance and sketches a dark figure and gets surprised when he realizes what he has drawn. His train of thought is broken by Jenny, who can't sleep because she too felt like someone was in her room. It is the first time she has spoken to Jeff after her mom passed away. Jeff takes the opportunity and talks Jenny out of her baby talking habit. The next day at work, Connor's partner Alan sees Jeff's sketches that he made last night and hires him as the comic artist for his dark comic series. Back home, something weird has started to happen. Jenny is visited by an oversized Scarlet, one of her dolls based on Jeff's Grizzly Kin comic. Jeff has also felt the inexplicable presence but doesn't think much of it and attributes it to being tired because of overworking. As the days pass, Jeff spends more time with Jenny and helps her overcome the grief of losing her mother. But as night falls, they can't shake off the feeling of being watched. So for peace of mind, Jeff installs a baby monitor in Jenny's bedroom so she doesn't feel alone at night, and Jeff can come to check on her anytime she wants. He gives her a pep talk about being fearless and assertive and telling the monsters she doesn't want them to be in her room. Jenny innocently asks if she can befriend it, as she did with her creepy-looking dolls, and Jeff allows her as he sees no harm in it. The next day, Jeff is getting ready for work and he asks Jenny to take a bath. But when Jenny says that her mommy told her that she doesn't have to take baths in the mornings, Jeff is slightly taken aback. At work, he searches the internet about the way his daughter is behaving and how he can help Jenny. A colleague comes to him and tells him that an older man came by and he was asking questions about him. Jeff rushes outside and finds Paul walking to his car, and they get into a verbal spat about who gets to take Jenny. To take his mind off things, he takes Jenny to the park after work, and nanny Samantha accompanies them. She seems more interested in Jeff than in looking after Jenny and keeps praising him for how good of an artist he is. She also keeps finding ways to spend more time with him, which Jeff doesn't notice for some reason. As Jeff and flirty Samantha are walking, suddenly the world slows down for Jeff, and a red haze covers everything. Everyone seems to stare at Jeff, and just like it started, it stops, and everything goes back to normal. Spooked by what just happened, Jeff picks Jenny up and rushes back home, and guardian Samantha tails them. Back at home, while he sends Jenny to change and brush her teeth before bed, friendly Samantha pours drinks for them and suggests moving to a new city. She also insists on coming along, and suddenly, horny Samantha kisses Jeff, but Jeff backs away, and embarrassed, she leaves. That night, Jeff is working late and hears Jenny speaking with someone. He looks at the nanny cam and sees a figure beside Jenny, making him rush to her room to find no one there. Jenny sneaks behind him to spook him, and he playfully pretends to get scared. After putting her to bed, he leaves. Unbeknownst to him, Jenny's dolls turn their faces to look at Jeff as he leaves. The following day, Jeff is working late again in the office, and housekeeper Samantha stays with Jenny to look after her. She is busy doing chores when she hears a noise from the attic. She asks Jenny to come down, as Jeff has forbidden her from playing there, but when she approaches the door that leads to the attic, it locks on its own. Worried, Samantha desperately cries for Jenny to open up, and when the door finally opens, she sees Jenny standing at the edge of the stairs and a dark figure standing behind her. Jenny stomps down in anger while the figure disappears, prompting scared Samantha to close the door quickly. She waits outside the house and starts crying when she sees Jeff and explains that she thinks Jenny hates her. Jeff tries placating her when she confides in him and tells him what she saw in the attic. Then she abruptly changes the subject and asks Jeff if he wants to get high and watch a cartoon, to which Jeff refuses, making stoner Samantha leave. Jeff installs a lock on the attic door so Jenny doesn't go in there again, and when he walks into his workstation, he is shocked to find ink splashed all over his sketches. He goes to confront Jenny, but Jenny denies doing it. The next day at work, he shares what's happening at his home with Alan, and Alan poses a theory that the entity in his house is his ex-wife who is trying to take her daughter back. Jeff tries to dismiss it, but he can't deny that there is a presence in his house. Alan introduces him to a substance that can make him capable of communicating with his dead wife's spirit, which Jeff brings back home but puts away in his drawer for the time being. That evening, Chef Samantha is helping with dinner, and soon after she serves Jenny food, Jenny has an allergic reaction. Jeff asks for the EpiPen they keep in the kitchen drawer, but clueless Samantha can't find it or her phone to call 911. Thankfully, Jeff has one in his bag, and he administers it to Jenny on time. Just as it happens, the screws of the chandelier come undone and bonks the babysitter's head, who is standing right underneath it. Soon, the police arrive at their home and find bruises on Jenny. They question Jeff intensively, suspecting domestic violence, and he denies knowing anything about it. Jenny is also examined separately, and she tells the officers that her dad didn't do it to her. Once left alone, Jenny follows a voice to the attic after the door unlocks itself, and Jenny sits at the edge of an open window. She talks to a human-sized Scarlet floating in the air and addresses her as Mommy. She asks her not to hurt anyone as she moves closer to hug the floating entity. She is just a step away from falling, but Jenny safely steps back inside. Injured Samantha has been administered primary care and is made to rest in one of the bedrooms at Jeff's place. At night, she is woken by the rain splattering on the window when she sees the ghastly life-size doll. Before she can scream, the doll takes control and traps her under the sheets, hovering over her to make her presence known. The entity soon disappears, leaving gasping Samantha rattled. Downstairs, Paul also arrives, demanding to see his granddaughter, and to his surprise, Jeff asks him to take Jenny along, as it would be safer for her to be away from the house. They're in the middle of a conversation when terrified Samantha comes running downstairs and pulls Jeff aside to tell him that she came face to face with the entity moments ago, and she believes it to be Maggie, who wants to kill her because she is jealous of her. Jeff calms her down and asks her to go home and rest. After sending Jenny with Paul, Jeff drinks the substance Alan gave him and lies down, hoping to form a connection with his wife's spirit. As soon as he is tripping balls, he sees the entity still in the form of one of Jenny's dolls. He talks to her and tells her that she is not how he remembers Maggie, who was a better parent than him. After pleading with the entity not to hurt his daughter, the entity disappears, and he wakes up, realizing it is morning. It is the day of the hearing for Jenny's custody, and Jeff makes it clear that he doesn't want to lose Jenny and is trying his best to provide her with the life she deserves. He also tells Paul that he will be moving upstate with Jenny so she can be closer to Paul, and has already made arrangements with the school. Seeing him trying his best to become a good father, Paul decides to give Jeff a chance and calls off the petition. He also tells Jeff that he had private investigators look into Maggie's accident, and they found the car that had hit her. It is only a matter of time before they'll know who the driver is. Jeff has decided to sell the house and finally, feeling like his life is back on track, makes a detour to his office while he asks reliable Samantha to take Jenny to meet Paul at his house. Jeff goes to the office and tells Connor he's leaving town, but will continue working for him from home. They are done with a comic Alan and Jeff were working on, with the evil spirit vanquished. While viewing the final drawings, Connor proposes that to convert the book into a series, they change the ending into one where the evil spirit returns, since it won't go away just because the protagonist asked nicely. The realization makes Jeff and Alan suddenly turn somber, and Alan suggests Jeff check on his daughter. Back at home, Jenny excitedly packs, and helpful Samantha assists her while Paul gets a call about the identity of the driver, and when he opens his mail, he is shocked to see a familiar face. He immediately calls Jeff, but Jeff is busy in the meeting and doesn't pick up his call, so Paul forwards the mail to him and rushes to check on Jenny, but he suddenly gets thrown off the stairs. Jenny hears a thud, and a panicking Samantha rushes to Jenny's room, saying they need to get out of the house. Suddenly, everything gets covered in a red haze, and as if mesmerized by the swaying branches outside the window, enthralled Samantha stares into oblivion. Jeff rushes back home and finds Paul at the bottom of the stairs. He is hurt but still alive, and signals to check his mail, which Jeff does, and is shocked to find that the person who killed Maggie is Samantha. He hasn't recovered from the shock when he hears frantic Samantha rushing down the stairs, pleading with him to leave the house. But when Jeff confronts her about the accident, creepy Samantha says she was doing Jeff a favor because Maggie was about to take everything from him, even Jenny. She wanted Jeff all to herself, which is why she tried to get rid of Jenny too, by poisoning her, but she was saved. Stalker Samantha breaks their family picture frame, picks a glass shard, and points it at Jeff. She blabbers about what a perfect family they would have made, and after everything she did for him, he could at least say something. Jeff bids her goodbye as everything turns red, and the entity appears behind crazed Samantha. The entity picks up soon-to-be no more Samantha by her neck and gives her a crimson necklace using the shard she was holding. As the entity approaches Jeff, Jenny shouts, asking Mommy to stop, and runs upstairs to the attic. The entity disappears, and Jeff chases Jenny to the attic, where he finds Jenny climbing outside the window and rushes to save her from falling. Jeff shouts at the ghost, saying that she doesn't get to take Jenny because she is his daughter, but the ghost aggressively approaches Jeff. Before it could harm him, Jenny cries and asks them to stop fighting because all she has seen them do is fight. Jeff calms down a little and apologizes to Jenny. He then climbs to the window, but Jenny suddenly slips, and Jeff jumps after her. As if jumping into water, everything slows down, and Jeff holds Jenny tight as they plummet. Jeff sees all his memories with his daughter in a flash, and he apologizes to her again for not being able to protect her. As soon as they touch the ground, everything goes blank. Jeff opens his eyes and finds himself lying on the ground while Jenny stands nearby. She asks if Mommy saved them, but Jeff doesn't have an answer. The red haze fades away as the father-daughter duo sits on the stairs and the sirens blare at a distance. Mid-credits, Jenny is seen sleeping in her room when the door opens on its own and a contortionist entity makes its way out. It is the same entity that Jeff had a nightmare about right after Maggie's death. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thanks for watching.